As the plague killed more people every day, Council Leader Krex made a desperate decision. He called an emergency meeting of all the species leaders. The Great Council Hall was half empty because many colonies could not send representatives. Those who came looked tired and scared. "We must contact humanity," Krex announced. His stone voice echoed through the huge chamber. "They are the only ones who can help us organize a proper response to this crisis." The other leaders agreed immediately. Their usual pride in politics meant nothing when their people were dying by the millions. Ambassador Vexstar stood up on shaking legs. The plague had not reached his homeworld yet, but the stress was killing him slowly. "I volunteer to lead the search mission," he said. "I have the fastest ships in the Ultron fleet." "No," said Ambassador Kala gently. "I should go. The humans always seemed to like me better than the others." This was true. During council meetings, Kala had been one of the few aliens who tried to be friendly with the humans. She had asked Ambassador Yanji about her little plant. She had thanked Bia for her detailed reports. She had always said hello to Hyenwu before sessions started. "I remember Ambassador Yanji," Kala said with sadness in her voice. "She was always so kind. She would smile when I asked about her. Flower. Such a gentle person." The search team was put together quickly. It included members from every major species that was still functional. They took the fastest ships available and headed toward human space. Everyone hoped they would find answers. In humanity's home systems, the journey took 3 days at maximum speed. As they got closer to human territory, the search team expected to find empty colonies or abandoned stations. The humans had been gone for months. Surely their civilization would be falling apart like everyone else's. Instead, they found something that shocked them. The human colonies were not just surviving. They were thriving. Cities gleamed under alien suns like jewels. Spaceports bustled with activity as ships came and went. Gardens bloomed in perfect harmony with advanced technology. The humans had built something beautiful and efficient, but every human settlement was protected by defensive shields and automated warning systems. "This is human space," said a polite computer voice when the search ships approached. "We thank you for your visit, but we are not receiving guests at this time. Please maintain safe distance and have a pleasant journey." The search team tried everything. They sent formal diplomatic messages. They broadcast emergency signals about the plague. They even tried to sneak past the defenses with stealth ships. Nothing worked. The humans acknowledged every message with the same calm response. "We understand your situation. We wish you well. However, we are not receiving visitors at this time." But the shields stayed up. The defenses remained active. The humans would not let anyone into their space. Ambassador Kala flew her ship closer to one of the human worlds. Through her scanner, she could see people walking in the streets, children playing in parks. Everything looked normal and peaceful. "They are not sick," she reported to the rest of the team. "The plague has not reached them." "How is that possible?" asked Vexstar. "The disease has spread to every corner of the galaxy. Maybe they found a cure," suggested the Gorlan's military officer. "Maybe that is why they left the council?" They knew this was coming. The search team spent days studying human space from a distance. What they discovered was even more surprising than the thriving colonies. The humans had been preparing for this withdrawal for years. Possibly decades. New colonies had been built in secret locations that the council had never mapped. Advanced technology protected every settlement. Self-sufficient systems meant the humans needed nothing from the outside galaxy. "Look at this," said the vegan scientist. She was studying energy readings from the human worlds. "These power systems are more advanced than anything we have seen." They must have been developing this technology for a very long time. They planned this, whispered Ambassador Vexstar. "While we thought they were just quiet observers, they were getting ready to leave us behind." The humans had even moved their most important populations to hidden worlds in distant star systems. They had become truly independent. They did not need trade with other species. They did not need resources from council space. They did not need anything from the galaxy that had ignored them for 50 years, but the council needed them desperately. The search team found old, human research stations that had been abandoned. The equipment was gone, but some records remained. These records showed that human scientists had been studying galactic diseases for decades. They were preparing for a pandemic, said the Zanari doctor on the team. They have research notes about dozens of different plagues, including the Zentari. Plague, added the vegan scientist. They have detailed studies of this exact disease from 20 years ago. The search team realized something horrible. The humans had known this plague was coming. They had tried to warn the council. But no one had listened. When the search team returned to council space, they brought disturbing news. Humanity had not just left the council. They had completely separated themselves from galactic civilization, and they had been preparing for this separation for a very long time. The council leaders gathered in the Great Hall to hear the report. The place felt empty and cold with so many seats vacant. The plague had reached even more worlds while the search team was away. They will not see us, Ambassador Kala reported. They acknowledge our messages, but they will not let us land or meet with their leaders. What about the plague? Asked Krex. Are they willing to help? They know about the plague, Kala replied, but they will not share their knowledge. They keep saying they wish us well, but they will not help us. The council leaders sat in stunned silence. For 50 years, the humans had been the most helpful species in the galaxy. They had never refused to help anyone who needed it. Now, when help was needed most, they were gone. We drove them away, said the Gorlan's military commander. We treated them like they did not matter. Now they are treating us the same way. They are not being mean, said Kala sadly. They are just done with us. The search team had brought back some disturbing intelligence. Human space was much larger than anyone had realized. They had colonies and star systems that the council had never explored. They had resources that made them completely independent. Most importantly, they had technology that was far ahead of anything the council species possessed. Their defensive systems are incredible, reported the Alteron pilot. We could not get past them even if we wanted to fight, said Krex. We cannot fight them. We need their help. They do not need ours, replied the pilot. They do not need anything from us. The terrible truth was becoming clear. The humans had not left because they were weak. They had left because they were strong enough to survive on their own. While the council species fought over scraps and played political games, the humans had been building a better future. They had been preparing for the day when they would no longer need the chaotic galaxy that had ignored them. That day had come. And the council was learning what it meant to be truly alone. In the empty human section of the Great Hall, dust continued to gather on the abandoned desks. The quiet ones had found their own path among the stars, and they were not coming back. The great council hall was huge and full of noise. Thousands of aliens from different worlds sat in big curved rows that went up and up like a giant stadium. The ceiling was so high that small clouds floated near the top. Bright lights shone. Down on the center, where the most important aliens gave their speeches, Ambassador Han Wu sat in the human section with his small team. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and calm brown eyes. He wore a simple black suit that looked plain, next to the fancy robes and armor of the other species. Next to him sat Bar, a young woman with short hair who always carried a tablet. She was typing notes very fast, but her face showed nothing. The noise in the hall was getting louder. The Alterans were arguing with the Gorlans again. The Alterans were tall blue people with 4 arms, and they moved their arms around when they talked. The Gorlans looked like walking rocks with red eyes, and they made the floor shake when they hit their desks. Even the Zanari, who usually stayed quiet, were making clicking sounds with their beaks. Only the humans sat still and listened. In the center of the hall, Ambassador Vexstar from the Alteron world was waving all 4 of his arms. His blue skin was getting darker, which meant he was angry. The Outer Rim mining belt belongs to us, he shouted. We found those rocks first, and we have the best machines to dig them up. The Gorlans did not like this. Their leader Krex stood up, and his stone body made a grinding sound. Wrong, he said in a voice like an earthquake. Gorlins were mining space rocks before Alterans learned to fly. These asteroids have our marks on them. Ambassador Kala from the Zanari spread her white wings. The Zanari look like big birds, but they were very smart. Both claims have merit, she said in her musical voice, but fighting will help no one. We should find a way to share. The three species had been fighting about the same asteroid belt for months. It was full of rare metals that everyone needed. The Alterans wanted it because they were good at making high-tech things. The Gorlins wanted it because they were the best miners in the galaxy. The Zanari wanted it because they needed the metals. For their medicine, each group brought thick files of papers and star maps and computer data. They had lawyers and scientists and even some military people with them. The arguing went on and on and on. Bo-Ra kept typing on her tablet. She was recording everything every alien said. She also wrote down things like who looked angry and who was friends with who. Her fingers moved so fast they were like a blur. Sometimes she would tap a few buttons and her tablet would show pictures of the asteroid belt from different angles, but she never spoke. None of the humans spoke unless someone asked them a direct question. The other aliens had stopped noticing the humans months ago. The Alterans thought humans were too weak to matter. The Gorlins thought humans were too small to be important. The Zanari were polite to everyone, but they spent their time talking to the bigger species. The mining rights must be decided today, said Council Leader Krex. He was the oldest Gorlin and his rock body was covered in cracks from age. We cannot keep fighting about this. Ambassador Vexstar pulled out a hologram that showed the asteroid belt spinning in the air. Look at this data, he said. Alteran ships can mine these rocks 3 times faster than anyone else. Give us the rights, and we will share the metals with everyone. The Gorlins laughed, and it sounded like rocks falling down a mountain. Alterans break everything they touch, said their military leader. Gorlins have been mining for 1,000 years. We know how to do it right. Ambassador Kala flew down to the center of the hall. What if we divide the belt into 3 parts, she suggested. Each species gets some rocks and we all work together. This made everyone argue even more. The Alterans wanted the biggest rocks. The Gorlins wanted the rocks with the most metal. The Zanari wanted the rocks that were easiest to reach. While they argued, Hyunwoo sat quietly and watched. His brown eyes moved from speaker to speaker. He was listening to every word, but his face showed nothing. Bo-Ra was still typing, but now she was also drawing little pictures on her tablet. The pictures showed which aliens were friends and which ones were enemies. The arguing went on for 3 hours. Aliens shouted and waved their arms or wings or tentacles. Some of them started walking around the hall to talk to their friends. Others pulled out computers to show more data. The noise got so loud that the smaller species had to cover their ears. Finally, Council Leader Krex hit his big stone gavel on the desk. The sound was like thunder. Order, he shouted. We need order in this hall. The noise got quieter, but the aliens were still angry. They glared at each other across the hall. Some of them were whispering to their assistants. Others were sending messages on their computers. Krex looked around the hall with his red eyes. We have heard many ideas today, he said. But we need more solutions. Does anyone else have something to say? His eyes stopped on the human section. The humans looked so small and quiet compared to the other aliens. They had been sitting in the same seats for hours without moving much. Ambassador Hyunwoo said, Krex, does humanity have an opinion about the mining rights? All the aliens turned to look at the human section. Some of them looked surprised, like they had forgotten humans were there. Others looked bored, like they did not care what humans thought. Hyunwoo stood up slowly. He was not tall like the Alterans or strong like the Gorlins. He was just a normal human man in a simple suit. But when he stood up, the hall got quiet. Thank you, Council Leader Krex, he said. His voice was calm and clear. The Council has heard many good ideas today. All 3 species have valid claims and smart solutions. Humanity trusts in the wisdom of this Council to find the right answer for everyone. That was all he said. He sat back down and folded his hands in his lap. The aliens looked confused. Where was the long speech? Where were the Demands and threats, where were the files of data and computer display? Some of the aliens nodded like they thought it was a good answer. Others whispered to each other about how strange humans were. The Alterans looked annoyed because they wanted humans to support them. The Gorlans seemed disappointed because they expected humans to pick a side, but Bara was still typing. Her tablet now showed something very interesting. It had detailed maps of the asteroid belt that were much better than anything the other species had shown. It had information about which rocks had the most metal and which ones would be easiest to mine. It had data about the best ways to transport the metals and which species needed what materials. The humans had been studying this problem for months. While the other aliens argued in the council hall, human scientists had been quietly learning everything about the asteroid belt. They knew exactly how much metal was there and the best ways to get it out, but they did not share this information. They just sat quietly and listened. After the council session ended, the aliens packed up their things. The Alterans rolled up their holograms and complained about the other species. The Gorlans gathered their stone tablets and made plans for more meetings. The Zanari folded their wings and talked about compromise. The humans just picked up their few simple bags and walked toward the exit. They did not talk to the other aliens or make any speeches. They did not promise to help or threaten to cause trouble. They just left quietly like they always did. What the other aliens did not know was that this was the last time they would ever see humans in the council hall. The quiet ones had been watching and learning and planning. They had made a decision. That would change everything. And they were about to disappear without making a sound. The plague continued to spread across the galaxy like a fire that could not be stopped. Entire star systems went dark as colonies were abandoned or destroyed. The council was running out of time and options. Then a young Zanari technician named Kira made a discovery that changed everything. Kira was working in the old human research section that had been abandoned for months. She was trying to find any information that might help fight the plague. Most of the human computers had been wiped clean, but she found one old backup drive that had been forgotten. "Ambassador Kala," she called excitedly. "You need to see this, Kala." Flew over to the dusty computer terminal. Her white wings were drooping with exhaustion. She had been working day and night trying to coordinate medical relief efforts. "What did you find?" Kala asked. Kira pointed at the screen with her claw. "I found an old human medical database. It has information about the Zentari plague." Kala's eyes went wide. "Information about the plague. How old is this data?" 20 years. "Old," Kira replied. "The humans knew about this disease 20 years ago." The two aliens stared at the screen in shock. The database contained detailed information about the plague, how it spread, how it affected different species, and most importantly, how to cure it. "They developed treatments," Kala whispered. "They found ways to stop the disease, but there was more. Much more. The database showed that human scientists had discovered the plague in a distant star system during a routine exploration mission. They had immediately begun working on treatments and cures. They had run thousands of tests and experiments, and they had tried to share their findings with the council. "Look at this," said Kira. She pulled up another file. The humans requested time to present their research to the council. They wanted to warn everyone about the plague. Kala read the request with growing horror. They submitted this presentation request 3 years ago. What happened to it? Kira checked the council records. It was denied. The session was about trade route disputes between the Alterans and Gorlans. The council leaders said there was no time for human research presentations. "They tried to warn us," Kala said. Her voice was full of pain. "They knew this was coming and they tried to tell us." The database contained even more shocking information. The humans had not just studied the Zentari plague. They had researched dozens of other potential disasters: asteroid impacts, solar flares, invasive species, resource depletion. For every threat they had developed solutions. "This is incredible," said Kira. "They predicted the food shortage crisis 5 years before it happened. They had plans ready to deal with it." "What about the trade route wars?" asked Kala. "They saw that coming too. They wrote detailed peace proposals that could have prevented the whole conflict. The two aliens spent hours going through the database. The pattern was always the same. Human scientists would discover a potential problem. They would develop solutions. They would try to share their knowledge with the council, and they would be ignored. We never listened, Kala said sadly. We were always too busy fighting each other to pay attention to their warnings. The database showed that the humans had tried to present their research 17 times in the past 10 years. Every time they had been turned away because the council was dealing with more urgent political matters. Ba'ora's personal files were particularly heartbreaking. She had written detailed reports about every crisis the galaxy might face. She had calculated exactly how many people would die if the problems were not addressed. She had begged the council to listen. "Look at this final entry," said Kira. She pointed to a file dated just 1 week before the humans left the council. The file was a complete plan for galactic disaster preparedness. It included early warning systems, emergency response protocols, medical supply networks, everything needed to save millions of lives. She submitted this plan to the council leadership, Kala Reed. It was filed away without being read. "This plan could have stopped the plague," said Kira. "If we had implemented these systems, we could have contained the disease before it spread." The two aliens sat in silence for a long moment. Around them, the abandoned human research station seemed to whisper of lost opportunities and ignored wisdom. "We have to tell the others," Kala said finally. She called an emergency meeting of all the council leaders who were still alive and functional. The great hall was more empty than ever. Many species had lost so many people that they could not send representatives. Ambassador Vextar looked terrible. His blue skin was almost gray with exhaustion. Half of his forearms were bandaged from stress injuries. "What is so important that it cannot wait?" he asked. "We found something," Kala said. "Something that changes everything." She shared the contents of the human database with the surviving council members. The reaction was immediate and devastating. "They knew," whispered the Gorlan's military commander. "They knew this would happen and they tried to warn us. We ignored them," said the vegan representative. "We treated their research like it was unimportant, Ambassador." Vextar stared at the data on his tablet. "I remember that day 3 years ago. The humans wanted to present their plague research. I complained that they were wasting time with irrelevant studies." "It was not irrelevant," said Kala. "It was the most important thing anyone had ever tried to tell us." The council leaders reviewed more of the human research. Every major crisis of the past 50 years had been predicted by human scientists. The humans had developed solutions for most of them. But every time they tried to share their knowledge, they had been dismissed. "We treated them like servants," said Krex. His stone voice was full of regret. "We thought they were there to take notes and stay quiet." "They were taking notes," replied Kala. "But they were also thinking and planning and preparing. While we fought over territory and resources, they were trying to save us from ourselves." The database contained one final, devastating revelation. The humans had not left because they were angry or hurt. They had left because they realized the council would never change. The Ora's final report was blunt and honest. "The galactic species are not ready for cooperation. They prefer conflict to collaboration. They choose politics over survival. Humanity cannot continue to watch civilizations destroy themselves through willful ignorance." "We failed them," said the vegan representative. "They spent 50 years trying to help us. We never gave them a chance." "They gave us many chances," corrected Kala. "We wasted all of them." The truth was clear now. Humanity had not been the weak, quiet species that everyone had believed. They had been the wise, patient ones. They had been preparing for disasters while others played political games. When they realized that the galaxy would never listen to reason, they had quietly withdrawn to let the others learn from their mistakes. But the lesson was coming at a terrible cost. Billions had died, entire civilizations had collapsed. The great galactic community was falling apart, and somewhere in the distant stars, humanity was building a better future for those who were wise enough to listen. The council finally understood what they had lost. But understanding came far too late. The galaxy was burning, and the ones who could have saved it were gone. 3 months had passed since the big meeting about the asteroid belt, and Council Leader Krex was reading his daily reports in his stone office. The office was carved from one giant rock and had no windows because Gorlins liked dark places. Read. Crystals on the walls gave off a dim light that made everything look like it was on fire. Krex picked up the attendance sheet with his big rocky fingers. The paper looked tiny in his hands. He read through the list of all the different species. There came to council meetings, Alterans present. Zanari present, Gorlins present, Vegan present, Stellar Union present, but something was wrong. Pip, he called to his assistant. Pip was a young Zanari with bright yellow feathers and nervous energy. He flew into the office so fast he almost crashed into the wall. Yes, sir, Pip said while flapping his wings to stay in the air. Where are the humans today? Krex asked. His red eyes looked confused. They are not on the attendance list. Pip landed on a perch next to Krex's desk. His feathers ruffled up, which meant he was worried. I do not know, sir. They did not come to today's meeting. What about yesterday? Pip pulled out a small tablet, and his claws clicked against the screen. No, sir, they were not there yesterday. Either Krex made a grinding sound, which was how Gorlin showed they were thinking hard. Check the whole week. Pip's beak clicked as he looked through more records. Sir, the humans have not attended any meetings this week, or last week, or the week before that. This was very strange. In all the years Krex had been council leader, the humans had never missed meetings. They always came and sat in their quiet section and listened to everything. Even when the meetings were boring or when other species were fighting, the humans were always there. Maybe they are sick, said Pip hopefully. All of them, Krex asked. At the same time, that did not make sense. The humans usually sent about 10 people to council meetings. It was impossible for all of them to be sick for 3 weeks. Krex stood up and his stone body made scraping sounds. Send a message to the human embassy. Ask them why they are not coming to meetings. Pip flew out of the office to send the message. While he was gone, Krex thought about the humans. They had been part of the council for almost 50 years. They never caused trouble or started fights. They just sat quietly and took notes and voted for reasonable solutions, most of the time. Other species forgot the humans were even there, but now that they were gone, something felt different in the council hall. The meetings were louder and more chaotic. Arguments that used to get solved quickly now went on for hours. Species that used to work together were starting to fight more. Pip flew back into the office with bad news. Sir, the human embassy is closed. There is no one there. Closed, Krex repeated. What do you mean closed? I sent a messenger drone to their building. The doors are locked and all the lights are off. There is a sign on the front door, but it is written in human language. Krex felt something cold in his stone chest. This was not normal. Embassies did not just close without warning. Get someone to translate that sign. An hour later, Pip returned with a Zanari translator who had studied human languages. The translator was an old female with gray feathers and tired eyes. The sign says humanity thanks the council for its friendship. We wish you well, she read. That is all. Krex stared at the translator. That is it. No explanation, no demands, no complaints, nothing else, sir. Just those words. The next day, Krex called an emergency meeting of the council leaders. Representatives from all the major species gathered in a small conference room. The room felt crowded with so many different aliens trying to fit in one space. Ambassador Vexstar from the Alterans was there with his blue skin looking darker than usual. This is ridiculous, he said while waving his 4 arms. Humans cannot just disappear. Maybe they are planning something, suggested the Gorlins' military commander. Humans are sneaky. They could be preparing an attack. Ambassador Kala from the Zanari spread her white wings. Humans are not violent. In 50 years, they have never threatened anyone or started any wars. Then where are they? Asked the representative from the vegan collective. The vegans were small green people with big eyes, and they always looked worried. No one had an answer. Krex decided to send search teams to human space. The teams included diplomats, military officers, and scientists from different species. They took fast ships and headed toward the human colonies. What they found made no sense. The human colonies were still there. Cities were running normally. Spaceports had ships coming and going. Everything looked peaceful and organized. But when the Council ships tried to land, they were stopped by automated defense systems. "This is human space," said a polite computer voice. "We thank you for your visit, but we are not receiving guests at this time. Please leave safely. The search teams tried everything." They sent diplomatic messages. They asked for emergency meetings. They even tried to sneak past the defenses. Nothing worked. The humans acknowledged every message with the same response. "We understand your situation. We wish you well," but they would not let anyone into their space. The search teams did notice something interesting. The human colonies looked different than before. There were new buildings and better technology. The defenses were much stronger than anyone expected. It was like the humans had been preparing for something. When the search teams returned to the council, they brought disturbing news. The humans had not just left the council. They had completely cut off contact with the rest of the galaxy. Back in the council hall, the empty human section looked strange. Ambassador Yunji's desk still had her small earth plant on it. The plant was dying without anyone to water it. The leaves were turning brown and falling off. Other aliens walked past the empty human desks without really seeing them. But the absence was starting to cause problems. During the next council meeting, a trade dispute between the Alterans and the Stellar Union turned into a big fight. The two species could not agree on shipping routes for medical supplies. They argued for hours without reaching any solution. "This is stupid," said the Alteran representative. "We need someone to help us figure this out." "The humans used to help with trade problems," said Ambassador Kala quietly. They always knew which species needed what resources. Everyone looked at the empty human section. For the first time, they realized what was missing. The humans had never been just quiet observers. They had been the ones who remembered important details and helped solve problems. Beora's old research station was still set up in the back of the hall. Her computers were turned off and covered with dust. Empty coffee cups sat on her desk like she had just stepped out for a moment. But she was never coming back. The Zanari tried to take over the humans' job of organizing trade agreements. But they did not have the same detailed knowledge. They did not know which species were friends and which ones were enemies. They did not understand the complex history of every trade route. Without human help, simple problems became major crises. A shipping delay that should have been fixed in hours turned into a week-long emergency. 3 colonies ran out of food because no one remembered to reorder supplies. The council hall felt colder and emptier every day. Arguments became meaner without the humans' calming presence. Species that had worked together for decades started to distrust each other. And in the human section, dust continued to gather on the empty desks. The quiet ones who had watched over the galaxy for 50 years were gone, without a sound. They had simply vanished. The council was starting to understand that they had lost something important, but they still did not know what it was or how to get it back. Outside the Great Hall, the galaxy was about to face its biggest crisis ever. And for the first time in 50 years, humanity would not be there to help. 2 years had passed since humanity left the council, and the galaxy was a very different place. The great civilization that had taken thousands of years to build was now broken into scattered pieces. The Zentari plague had finally been stopped, but only after killing billions of people. The cure from the old human database had worked, but distributing it without human logistics networks had taken months instead of days. Entire species had been wiped out while the council struggled to coordinate relief efforts. The Alterans had lost half their population. The Gorlans had abandoned most of their mining colonies. The Zanari were exhausted from trying to treat everyone with too few resources. Many smaller species had simply vanished from the galaxy. In the Great Council hall, The meetings were smaller and sadder than before. The massive chamber built to hold thousands of representatives now echoed with the voices of a few dozen survivors. Ambassador Kala sat in her usual perch, but she looked much older. Her white feathers were turning gray and her wings drooped with weariness. She had been studying human history for the past year, trying to understand how such a peaceful species had become so powerful. The answer was simple. They had listened while other species talked, humans had listened. While others argued, humans had learned. While others demanded, humans had prepared. While others played politics, humans had built solutions. The empty human section had become a memorial. Someone had placed a small metal plaque where Ambassador Yanji's plant used to grow. It read in memory of the quiet ones who watched over us, but the humans were not really gone. They were just gone from the council. Reports came in daily from the edges of known space. Human colonies were expanding into new star systems. They were building cities on worlds that other species had thought uninhabitable. They were creating a new network of civilization that was better organized and more efficient than anything the council had ever achieved. The humans were also helping other species, but only the ones who asked politely and showed they had learned. From past mistakes, a small group of peaceful aliens called the Malari had contacted humanity after their world was destroyed by a natural disaster. The humans had welcomed them with open arms. They had given the Malari new homes and taught them advanced technology. The Malari are thriving in human space, reported a Zanari scout. They have better lives now than they ever had before. Other species that had never been part of the council were also joining the human network. The Taivari were a shy species that had always been afraid of the larger galactic powers. The humans had offered them protection and friendship. They are creating their own galaxy, said Ambassador Vexstar during one council meeting. Better than ours. Vexstar looked terrible. He had lost 3 of his 4 arms in an accident during the plague crisis. His blue skin was pale and scarred. Like many Alterans, he had not recovered from the massive losses his people had suffered. Maybe we should ask them to come back, suggested the Gorlan's military commander. Tell them we have learned our lesson, have we? Asked Kala. Have we really learned? The question hung in the air like a challenge. The council meetings were still full of arguments and political games. The surviving species were still fighting over resources and territory. They were still making the same mistakes that had driven humanity away in the first place. No, said Kala sadly. We have not learned. We are still the same species that ignored their warnings and dismissed their help. Some council members spoke of war. They wanted to force humanity to return and share their advanced technology. But the few scouts who had probed human space reported defenses that were far beyond anything the council possessed. Their ships are faster than ours, reported an Alteron pilot. Their weapons are more advanced. Their shields are impenetrable. We could not defeat them even if we wanted to. We should not want to, said Kala firmly. They were our friends for 50 years. They never hurt anyone. They only tried to help us. Then why will they not help us now? Asked the vegan representative. Kala spread her wings and looked around the empty hall. Because we proved that we do not deserve their help. We had 50 years to listen to them. We chose not to. The truth was painful but clear. The humans had not left because they were weak or angry. They had left because they were wise enough to see that the council would never change, and they had been right even after losing billions of lives to a plague that could have been prevented. The council species were still fighting among themselves. The Alterans blamed the Gorlans for hoarding medical supplies. The Gorlans accused the Zanari of playing favorites. The surviving smaller species formed alliances against the larger ones. It was the same old pattern of conflict and mistrust that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Meanwhile, reports from human space painted a picture of a very different kind of civilization. The humans had built a society based on cooperation and mutual aid. Species that joined the human network were treated as equals. Resources were shared fairly. Conflicts were resolved through discussion rather than violence. They are doing what we never could, said Kala during a private meeting with Krex. They are building a true galactic community. Without us, Krex replied. His stone face showed no emotion, but his red eyes were sad. We had our chance, said Kala. We chose politics over progress. We chose conflict over cooperation. We chose to ignore wisdom in favor of our own pride. Krex made a grinding sound that was the Gorlan's way of sighing. Do you think they will ever forgive us? I think they already have, said Kala. That is why they left so quietly. They could have exposed our failures to the galaxy. They could have humiliated us. They could have fought us. Instead, they just left. They left because they knew we would destroy ourselves without their help. They wanted to save what they could of galactic civilization. Kala was right. The humans had not abandoned everyone. They had saved the species that were wise enough to ask for help. They had preserved the knowledge and technology that would have been lost in the chaos. They had built a lifeboat for galactic civilization while the Council ship sank. A year later, Kala received an unexpected message. It came through old diplomatic channels that had not been used since the humans left. The message was simple and unsigned, but she knew it came from humanity. The door is always open for those who truly wish to learn. Kala stared at the message for a long time. It was an invitation, but also a test. The humans would welcome back those who had genuinely changed, but they would not tolerate the same old behavior that had caused so much suffering. She thought about the empty council hall with its memorial plaque. She thought about the billions who had died from a plague that could have been prevented. She thought about the species that had vanished from the galaxy because no one had listened to human warnings. The lesson was clear. The galaxy had been given a choice between wisdom and pride. It had chosen pride and paid a terrible price. Somewhere in the distant stars, humanity was building a better future. They were working with species that had learned to listen. They were creating the kind of galactic community that the Council had always claimed to want but never achieved. The invitation was still there. For those brave enough to admit their mistakes and wise enough to change, Vakala suspected it would be a very long time before the Council species were ready to take that step. In the empty human section of the Great Hall, dust continued to settle on the abandoned desks. The quiet ones had found their own path among the stars, and they were not coming back to the old galaxy that had failed them. They were building a new one instead. The Council could join them when they were ready to listen. But first, they had to learn how to hear the wisdom in silence. 6 months after the humans disappeared, the galaxy faced something terrible. It started in the outer colonies where few people lived. At first, it seemed like a normal sickness. People got fevers and felt tired. But this was not normal at all. The disease spread faster than anyone thought possible. It jumped from planet to planet through trade ships and passenger flights. The aliens called it the Zentari Plague because it first appeared near the Zentari homeworld. But the Zenari were not the ones who brought it. The sickness was horrible. It made people so weak they could not get out of bed. Their skin turned strange colors. Many died within days. The disease affected almost every alien species in the galaxy. Only a few races seemed to be immune. The Alteron colonies were hit first and hardest. Ambassador Vexstar stood in the council hall with his blue skin, pale and his forearms shaking. 3 of our biggest colonies are gone, he said in a voice full of pain. Millions of Alterans are dead. We need help now. The Gorlans were suffering too. Their mining stations in the asteroid belt had been abandoned when the workers got sick or died. Our people are strong, said their leader. But this plague kills even the strongest Gorlans. The Zenari were trying to help everyone. They were the best doctors in the galaxy and they had medicines that could slow down the disease. But they did not have enough supplies for everyone who was sick. Ambassador Kala flew around the council hall with her white wings spread wide. We are doing everything we can, she said. But we need more medical equipment. We need more transport ships. We need more of everything. For the first time in council history, all the species were willing to work together. The Alterans offered their fastest ships. The Gorlans promised to mine rare materials needed for medicine. The Zenari shared their medical knowledge with everyone, but when they tried to coordinate their efforts, they discovered something awful. They did not know how to do it. The Alterans had ships, but they did not know which colonies needed help first. The Gorlans had materials, but they did not know how to get them to the right places. The Zanari had medicine, but they did not know how to distribute it fairly. "How did we do this before?" asked Ambassador Vextar. He was looking at old records on his tablet. During the asteroid storm crisis 5 years ago, relief supplies were moving within hours. "How did that happen?" Ambassador Kala landed on her perch and folded her wings. "The humans organized it," she said quietly. Ambassador Hyung-woo and his team set up the whole relief effort. "The humans," Vextar repeated. "But they never seemed to do anything important." "They did everything important," Kala replied. "We just did not notice," the council leaders pulled up more old records. Every major crisis in the past 50 years had been solved the same way. The humans had quietly organized the response while other species argued about who should be in charge. During the Great Comet Impact, humans had coordinated evacuation efforts for 6 different species. During the trade route wars, humans had negotiated peace treaties that everyone could accept. During the food shortage crisis, humans had organized supply deliveries to hundreds of colonies, and they had done it all without taking credit or demanding rewards. "Look at this," said the Gorlan's military commander. He was reading reports on his stone tablet. The humans had detailed maps of every trade route in the galaxy. They knew exactly how long it took to ship supplies between any 2 worlds. They also knew which species had extra resources and which ones needed help, added a Zanari scientist. Their databases were incredibly detailed. Bora's old research station was brought back online for the first time in months. The computers were password protected, but the Council's best technicians managed to get into some of the files. What they found amazed them. The humans had been building a massive database of galactic civilization for decades. They knew the population of every major colony. They knew which species needed what resources and when. They knew the capacity of every spaceport and the speed of every shipping route. While other species argued in council meetings, the humans had been quietly mapping the entire galaxy. "This is incredible," said a vegan technician. "They have detailed information about our supply chains that we do not even have ourselves, but most of the database was locked or had been wiped clean. The humans had taken their knowledge with them. When they left, without human coordination, the plague response became chaos. Ships carrying medicine went to the wrong star systems. Resources sat unused in warehouses while colonies begged for help. The Alterans and Gorlans started fighting over the few available medical supplies. "We need to prioritize Alteran colonies," demanded Vextar. "We have the most people dying." "Gorlans are dying too," replied the stone-faced military commander. "Our miners are more important than your city dwellers." The Zanari tried to be fair to everyone, but they could not keep track of all the different needs. Their medical ships flew in circles trying to help everyone at once. Ambassador Kala stood in the center of the council hall with her wings drooping. "We are failing," she said sadly. "People are dying because we cannot work together." "The humans could work with everyone," said a small voice from the back of the hall. It was a young vegan diplomat who had been taking notes. "They never picked sides or played favorites. They just helped whoever needed help most," agreed a Zanari doctor. "They did not care about politics or species loyalty," the death toll continued. To climb, entire star systems were being abandoned as the plague spread. The great galactic civilization that had taken thousands of years to build was falling apart in months. In the council hall, the empty human section looked like a monument to failure. Ambassador Yanji's plant had died weeks ago, but no one had removed it. The brown leaves scattered on the floor like tears. Some council members began to understand what they had lost. The humans had not been weak or uninvolved. They had been the invisible foundation that held everything together. "We treated them like servants," said Ambassador Kala during one emergency meeting. "We thought they were just there to take notes." "And stay quiet. They were taking notes," replied Vextar. "But they were also thinking and planning and preparing. While we fought over scraps, they were building something better." The plague continued to spread across the galaxy. More colonies fell silent, more species faced extinction. And for the first time in 50 years, there were no quiet humans sitting in the back of the council hall, ready to help when help was needed most. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the value of the quiet ones, but it was learning too late.